Today on Off the Hinges, relax, pour yourself a drink, and unwind from your week as I answer your questions and share stories about this week's trade. I'm joined by a special guest, and I have my whiskey in hand. I'm so glad you made it. Are you ready? Let's slide into the vault. All right, welcome back inside the vault, Off the Hinges. So I'm going to frame this one up a little bit and tee it up before I hand the proverbial mic over to today's guest. So if you rewind to episode 1, which was recorded August of last year, almost exactly 1 year ago today, this was my very first guest. Some may know her as Garita Coddington. Yep, you'd be right. Some may know her as a talent development lead for KPMG Island Group. Yep, you'd be right. But let me tell you really quick, because I've gotten to know this woman really well. We met around last May. We were both going through coursework for College of Executive Coaching. So it's been about 15 months, maybe somewhere in there that I've known her now. We've really developed a deep friendship. So before I give it over to her, because she's looking a little bit like Roma Downey, all white, angeled out. I feel like I'm watching Touched by an Angel or something. She's looking divine today. So looking good, girl. But our friendship is really neatly woven together. And I thought of this. I'm going to take you all to church for a second. Then I'm going to kick it over to her. If you've been to church or you've heard stories from the Bible, you've heard the story about how when people approached Jesus to tell him about his dear friend Lazarus and how he was sick and then, he's died and all of these things. And then, of course, there's a story. Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. You're like, Josh, where are you going with this, man? This is weird. Listen to me, though, because when they approached him, they said, the one that you love. They didn't even say his name, and they just referred to him by a very intimate way that they would know each other. And Jesus immediately knew this is Lazarus. And of course, Jesus loves everything. He is love. God is love. But when you're talking about Lazarus, he was so familiar with this man and loved him so deeply that all that the sisters had to say is the one you love. And he knew, boom, it's Lazarus. So you might know her as Garita or a talent development lead. But if someone was to look at me and go, Josh, your bestie, and you could just stop there. She calls herself my bestie in Bermuda. But if they said, Josh, your bestie, full stop. No one else calls themselves that to me. If you say your bestie, my mind's going, oh, you're talking about Garita. That's who this woman is to me. So I'm honored to have you. That was a long tee up, but it's been a year. We've been through some highs and some lows and some hells and some heavens between together. And today is on ownership. And I am so honored to hand this over to her. So my friend, introduce yourself to our listeners and guests today. Over to you.
First of all, Josh, I'm so honored that you asked me again to come on your show. And I didn't realize it's been a year and that, yes, I was one of your first guests. So
not one of, you were the first.
I was the first guest, right?
Number one. One of one.
And last time I was in actual, where I'm from, Bermuda. Yep. Today I'm sitting in Reading in England and at my son's apartment. So, this is very interesting. So a part of who I am is a mother, of course, of Remy and Cree. Like I said, Remy lives in the UK, Cree's back home with me. Yep. And I'm so thankful. And it's really important. I think it's kind of ironic, but it's not. I guess it's divine order that we're going to be talking about this topic of ownership, because that's where I believe I am right now in my life, taking ownership of what's going to happen to me next. Yep. So who am I? I'm a daughter, a mother, a sister, a friend. I'm someone who, I believe has been put on this earth to do the work of service leadership. I'm someone who I believe is kind, is thoughtful, is evolving, is continuing to evolve from when we first met way back, taking those classes. And you know how we were in some of those classes.
It was the grind, baby.
It was the grind, but really, really looking to connect with people, really looking to see how I can best serve others with the skill that I have and the talent that I have. And I thank God for that. But most importantly, I'm here to be present today, to be able to engage with your audience and, provide my story and provide opportunities for them to connect and think about how they can use some strategies and tools that I've used to get through the topic of ownership and to continue that journey.
It's good stuff. All right, we're diving right in. You know me well, so you know where we're going with this. But first and foremost, I've got to ask, what are you thankful for this week?
I'm so thankful for time. As you can hear, I'm actually getting over a cold. I've been on the grind for probably the past 20 weeks.
Mm.
And I'm so thankful for the opportunity to pause, to be able to reflect. In pausing, I know that my body has, I don't want to say has broken down, but it's talking to me that I have to rejuvenate. So I'm so thankful for time. I'm thankful for quiet. I'm thankful for connecting with someone I love, my son. And I'm thankful for sleep. Hey, I don't usually stay in bed for the entire day, but over the past day and a half, I've, taken some medication, gone back to sleep, went for a walk, came back in. But yeah, that's what I'm thankful for.
Good for you. Yeah, rest is so beautiful. When you can get good rest,
Yes.
that is so priceless, man. I
It's so
envy you a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. It's so good, so good. All right, what have you been learning lately?
Hmm. I've been learning that everything that has happened in our past prepares us for our future.
Hmm.
I've had some tremendous obstacles over the past since probably January. Some personal things that have been brought to my attention, and it's interesting that I chose to look at it in a more optimistic way. Some people maybe have been pessimistic with news that they were given over a loved one. But I look to say, okay, why is this happening? What is the lesson from this? And how can I show up? So I'm learning to really pause and not take everything as the glass half empty.
Right.
I'm learning to really talk less and listen more, as we should be doing as coaches. And I'm learning to be in the moment, to actually celebrate the micro and macro things that happen and do it in a way that's best serving me, because
Right.
I give of myself to so many people. How do I fill my cup? How do I, feed my soul? And I'm learning to do that. Hence, being out here in the UK with my son, it's where it's a pause moment. So this is part of me giving back to myself
Yeah.
and doing nothing.
That's so amazing. I'm so proud of you. Tell Remy I said what's up, by the way.
I
Beautiful
definitely
stuff.
will. I definitely
Love
will.
that kid. Okay. How do you hope to grow and transform as you find time for rest and reflection? And usually when I ask that question, I'm doubting if people can always pause and rest, especially in your spot and what you do.
Mm.
But just hearing that you are taking time to rest, how are you hoping you come out the other side of that rest with maybe some growth, some transformation, plugging into that constantly evolving mindset? What's that looking like for you? What's your goal?
To have courage. Um, I'm hoping that part of my growth and transformation after everything that has happened, and it has been intentional, I believe it has happened for a reason, as to a lot that's happened in my life. I'm hoping that I'm looking for courage and discipline as far as my growth is concerned and transforming as to who and what will Garita do next. Not what people expect, not doing it because it has worked or I'm doing very well in this area here. And, people have noticed it, but what is it that I really want? And I believe that part of my growth and development is that I have to have courage to do it. I have to go outside the box and take a risk. I have to be able to, again, not race or feel. I always say to my children, never make a decision when you think you're under pressure or
Mm-hmm.
when you think that you have to do it because it's the norm,
Right.
so part of what I'm going to be engaging in over the next couple of weeks is preparing for conversations that may make other people feel uncomfortable, but this to me is my growth and my development, and the transformation comes when I now can close a door and open another door, to best again serve me. And I think sometimes it's okay to put yourself first,
Mm.
uh, um, because I've changed. I've changed over the past couple of months, and some things that I thought were important to me actually aren't.
Mm. Yeah. And I know where that's at. That's again, that's between me and her. We're friends, so I know some of the deep dive on those things. But I will say that when you talk about coming out the backside of
Hmm.
this rest period and hopefully replugging in with your son and just family and things that matter a lot, and knowing the backdrop of that, even though I won't say it, like of what's been going on with you, which I value that. I value that we have a connection where we can
Hmm.
share our hearts. and the highs and the lows together, the micros and the macros, whether it's successes or getting beat down. And I'm walking through that valley of death right now, and it's dark and gloomy.
Yep.
And I will say, to get courage, I just met with a friend last night, connected via Zoom, another fellow coach, just a rock star of a person, a really dear friend. And we were talking about the power of encouragement and how, there's a lot of different feelings and emotions and valuable things, traits in this world. But love and fear seem to be two polar opposites that rise to the top of their respective circles, right? Love is all powerful, and fear is its pretty powerful nemesis. So when you're trying to cast out fear, sure, you can look at takes perfect love, but also courage is a part of love that faces some of those fears, fear of the unknown, a fear someone else is pressing into you. And then if you look at that word encourage, literally like the breakdown of that etymology of the prefix "en" means with. So it's like with courage. So when you encourage other people, which you do fantastic. And I would brag on both of us. I think we do that really well for each other. But that when you have people that are aligned to you, that know your heart, that can encourage you, it is such a powerful tool to shore up the love that that person needs for whatever they're going through and what they're about to step into, like you are with some of these conversations, but also to provide some courage that might not be feeling natural in yourself when other people can see that strength in you, see that goodness in you, and bring that to the top and not fluff you or, give you false praise, but to just encourage you with something that's grounded and rooted in who you are. I find that to be priceless. And actually, I think it's required of us to do for our friends and those that are close. So hopefully, I know you're going to encourage a lot of people today with what you're talking about, but hopefully if y'all dial into this and you're tuned in and this speaks to you, you'll turn right back around, pay it forward, and also connect with this woman, encourage her and tell her what this means to you today. Because I know what she's been going through. I know what she's about to step into. Whatever she shares is on her, but I know a lot of the deepness of that to the extent she can tell me. And encouragement is just a powerful thing. So encourage this woman, dial in, don't tune out. You're in for a gold mine right now today. And I'm so excited. So this next couple of questions are odds. It's really important. Before I dive into your story, I do want to ask you, because it's important to get the framework of how people view a certain thing, because everyone's going to have different definitions, frames. So if I was going to ask you to quickly give an elevator pitch of how you define or frame this virtue of ownership, what stands out the most to you on this topic?
I would say what stands out most to me on the virtue of ownership is gratitude for the decisions you make, and you have to hold yourself accountable for, whether it's the good, the bad, or the indifferent, and embrace it as part of a learning curve, right? As part of an opportunity to really get authentic with yourself. And the topic or the term ownership also to me means freedom, freedom to have an opportunity to make a decision based on what is happening with you, right? And the freedom to own it, to stand up for it. And again, sometimes it's where it's not always the good. It could be something that you did that you're not really proud of when you reflect, but it's still being able to be responsible for decisions that you've made. And I believe this is fitting because that's where I am with my life. There are some decisions that I've made in the past that now I'm ready to own and speak my truth to it. So it's very exciting. It's very exciting. Yes.
I love that. Yeah, man, I don't know why this just popped in my head, but this is, my mind always like alliterates for some reason. It's just what I do. And when I heard you say that, I was like, yo, gratitude for the gift, whether it's the gloom or the glam, baby. Like just, it's all a gift and it's an opportunity. And I love that word freedom because it is very freeing to own your own thoughts and to be a free thinker, and not that you should do things alone, but to then own it for yourself. And even when you make poor choices, if they were intentional and you just made a mistake, or if you did something intentionally wrong and you're trying to seek forgiveness, ownership is so important. The honesty that's required in that to own it, the transparency, the communication, everything. But you got to own it first. It's yours. It's no one else's to bear, whether it's good or bad. It's you. I love that. I know a little bit more than most people would because we've done a lot of talking. And the first time you heard this woman, if you didn't catch the first episode, when you're done with this one, rewind the game tape to episode 1 all the way back last August. First of all, I'll say, in the light of ownership, my first podcast looked and sounded a lot different. I was in a different room. The setup wasn't as nice. So owning and continually trying to evolve and grow and better, I'd say I've tried to do that with this space. It used to be a little bit shorter. So our conversation the first time, we were like, oh, let's keep it more short form, some snappy podcasts. Now we make it long form because like you can't dive deep on virtue if you put a timestamp on it. Mm-hmm. So this is untethered, whatever it goes with to answer your questions, our questions together, it's going to go there. So I appreciate just this chance to sit down and sit with the presence of someone else like you. But when I asked you your story last time and you shared some of that, it was good, but it didn't go as deep as I know it could. And since we're talking about ownership and some of the stuff that people didn't hear the first time, whether it be difficulties you had to work through physical ailments and rehab and things that just came out of left field that you didn't even see coming in life, that part of your story, I want people to hear about that today. So wherever you want to go with this, let's dig it a little bit deeper because, I think that's what the people need today. So I know you're going to own it, but share your story.
I was just going to say I'm going to own it. So you took the words out of my mouth, right?
There you go.
So who am I? Where do I come from? I come from 2 lovely parents, Amanda and Garrett, Mendy and Punchy. I'm the sister of Jamaica. I hail from Bermuda, the most beautiful island that anyone can ever visit or live in. I am the mother of Remy and Cree. Cree, phenomenal, beautiful young lady, doing her thing, and Remy in the UK figuring out what he wants to do. And most importantly, I believe I'm a child of God, right? I don't talk about that much because I don't go to church or, but that spiritual piece is there. I have an interesting journey, growing up in a very large family, and we didn't have much, but we had love. So I think that's the basis of who I am, for that kindness. I am very outspoken. I don't mind having challenging conversations. I actually enjoy it. But at the end of the day, I'm very big on, and I think I've been like this for a while from young on, helping others to be their best and doing it in a way where as I show up and as I've matured, I've done it in a way where I can frame that type of selflessness and kindness. But something happened to me at the age of 17 in Bermuda that I guess it actually pivoted or it changed my trajectory of what I thought life was going to be. At the age of 17, I was in a traumatic accident in Bermuda. And I actually, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, lost my lower right leg. So I'm an amputee. So I had graduated from high school, the Barclay Institute. That was one of the academia schools back in the day, had a great group of friends. And on this day, I was actually leaving my grandmother's, one of my best friends. And, God took her home last year. But I was leaving her house because I wanted to go and get a card for her. It was her birthday, November 5th, 1991. And in traveling, unfortunately, this gentleman lost control of a truck and slammed me into a barbed wire fence. And I don't remember, I was unconscious for a bit. But again, kindness. I remember when I woke up, a taxi driver had called the ambulance and he just told me not to look at your leg. Now, I was worried about my face. God forgive me. I was worried about, I thought, like, what's wrong with my face? It was just blood gushing from my nose or whatever. And I wasn't even worried about my leg. And I'm like, I must have broke my leg. And he said, don't look at it. So I didn't look at it. But something happened, and I'm sharing this with your audience. And, for those that believe in a higher being, I invite you to experience this with me. And Josh, we've talked about this. I experienced, I'm going to say it was a higher being. I say it was an angel, of course, a female, that all I heard, and it was a bright light. So all I heard was, this is supposed to happen to you. Everything's going to be okay. I didn't know what that meant. And as I went through, recovering from this and putting things into perspective, it makes sense. So, that led up to, thank God, my father doing his homework and networking and air ambulance me out to Duke University Hospital. And there I was, of course, told that, this has happened and we're going to have to amputate your lower right leg. And it was weird because I was like, okay. So, okay. So anyway, you go through, the family came up. That's why I love family. My grandmother, again, my mother, my dad, my aunts. I had friends that came over to support. And that's really important with rehabilitation. And I remember a specific incident that happened when I was in rehab and there was a psychologist, because everyone has a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
And she told my parents that there's no way that a 17-year-old should be able to handle what has happened to her with such, I forget the adjective that she used. I guess I'll use courage. She doesn't feel sorry for herself. And, my mom says, well, you don't understand who we are. And I never saw her again. I don't know what happened with my parents, but she never came back to, do the therapy with me. But I'm going to pause there because this is where I think the virtue of ownership comes. For whatever reason, I'm owning my part or whatever part I played in an accident, or I'm owning, and this could be thought of as a bad thing that happens, right? I got in this accident, but I had to make a decision of how am I at this 17 years old, haven't even put my foot out in the street, haven't, I was an academic. I didn't go out that much. I didn't party. I was about, the books and doing well.
Yep.
And this happened, but I'm owning what happened because I knew I had to make a decision of what my life was going to be like for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I did become very focused at a young age. I did. My mom and dad sent me straight off to uni, and that was probably one of the best things that could happen. I was there with my best friend, Alrita. We went to uni, and my cousin Maceo, and it was a group of us that went, and that was my support group. So again, with ownership, this is whatever has happened to you, you own it and you decide how you want to engage moving forward. So one of the things that was my was my was in my wheel was to do well in school. Academics was a non-negotiable. I knew that I needed scholarships to be able to go to uni, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because my family couldn't afford that, and it was about putting your best foot forward always. And again, I owned it. Again, I was accountable to myself. I never had parents that asked me, where's your report card? Did you get a 4.0? It was, this is what I want to do for myself.
Right.
And again, what had happened to me, that angel or that bright light that says, this is supposed to happen to you. Everything's going to be all right. So I think in the back of my mind, no matter what happened in my life, coming back to Bermuda, getting married, starting a great job in education, getting divorced, having my children move overseas, having to pivot and switch from being in education to being in corporate Bermuda and now globally, it's everything has worked to my favor, even when I thought that I lost everything financially and I had to build myself back up. Again, owning it and owning the decisions that you make to allow you to be in that space. But more importantly, making an effort to build a team around you that can support you like yourself. There's a reason we met. And I always say that, why did I take this course? Who does this coaching stuff? Right.
Even if it was just to meet you, man, it was more than you, but even if it was worth it. Totally.
Yeah. So I'm very in touch with who I am, and again, owning the decisions that I make moving forward and owning the decisions that I made in the past. I sit back and I'm like, God, you couldn't see that, or how could you do that? Or did that person have the right? And it hasn't always been pretty.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't been pretty, but I'm so thankful for where I am right now and the ability, like I said at the beginning of our conversation, to pause and know that the trajectory of my life is going to pivot. And I have to be okay with those that don't get it, those that don't support, and embrace those that do,
Right.
So yeah, and one of the other things that I'm doing, and despite me owning everything that happened to me physically is really opening up the door to embrace how can I help others that are amputees within my country. So, how can I help to be a voice? Because I don't see them. Like, where are they hiding out? You know, I know there are people that are amputees within Bermuda. I see them definitely when I travel, when I visit Boston to go to my prosthetic clinic and engage with some of the best prosthetists in the world. But there's something that in my heart is missing. And where are they? Are they hiding out because they don't have a voice?
Right.
And Garita, is this your opportunity to be the voice for them? And this involves being very vulnerable. So I think ownership is also having vulnerability to be able to be okay with how people perceive you. And again, it's perception, not reality, and
Right.
being steadfast on who you are. So that's part of the journey that I'm going to be embracing over the next couple of weeks and months. And I'm open to it. And again, I think I've been preparing for this for a while, you know? And again, if this is supposed to happen to you and you're going to be okay, and that comes from a higher being, well, now it's time to do the work, you know?
Right.
So that's my answer to your question.
You did. Any answer you give is answering the question.
You
Your
know?
story, girl.
Yeah. So that's my story.
I
That's
love
my
it.
story.
Thank you for sharing that. And when you just use this word steadfast, it just resonated really deeply with me for who I know you to be. Not that you aren't flexible and adaptive, but there's something about the character, and it does resonate with me because I'm sitting here staring at like my logo, which is foundational coaching. When I think of a foundation, I think something that is steadfast and unmovable. And there is a term that says steadfast, unmovable, and always abounding in the work of what God has given you. And that's just who I know you to be. That's your story to me. Is like you are just a rock. You are an anchor. When things hit, when storms hit, man, like you're not getting washed away. You're not getting swept away. You're there. You're working. You're grinding. And it's just a comfort to know, like, ooh, I can hitch my boat to this anchor and it's not going to be fluttering away. And that's just having that personality and owning that sort of behavior and demeanor and presence is really powerful. Like
Thank
I said,
you.
doesn't mean that you aren't a type of person that can pivot or adapt or be flexible. No, but like you can adapt with circumstances as you need. But I'm talking about your character. I'm talking about deep inside of you. That's not chasing the wind. That's there. That's steady. And that I feel like owning that and owning who you are and being bold enough to say like, hey, you all can believe whatever you want to believe. Absolutely. And I know you really genuinely feel that way. It's up to you as a person to own your own faith, your own belief, your own thoughts, your own actions, your own spiritual demeanor and emotions. That is yours to own and your decision only to make. But the fact that you're confident enough and courageous enough to share your part of that story and your side of the coin and say, but this is what it looks like for me. I love that because it doesn't come from an arrogant place or a holier than thou place. It just comes from a genuine, strong woman who says, yeah, you can think what you want. You ain't going to shake me. I know what I heard that day on the street. I know what happened in that accident and in that space. And I know that that was a gift to me during a very dark spot to give me the courage I needed to keep pressing on. Because I can't even imagine that at 17, losing my leg and being laid there on the street. I probably would have done the same thing. Yo, is my face all busted up? What's up? But yeah, man, thanks for sharing that. So from your own journey, what's something that you would say maybe you once owned, and whether it was a thought or an identity, that you later realized maybe that's really not mine to carry? And how did you release it? Because I feel like this is an important thing. Some people claim stake and claim rights and claim ownership to maybe things that they really shouldn't, that really aren't theirs. And maybe growing up and maturing or experiences help you understand, ooh, that's not really me. That's someone else's DNA, not mine. So when you come into those thoughts and actions and feelings and you realize like, ooh, that's not me. How do you try to rid yourself of that and release it in a powerful but graceful manner? What does that look like for you?
You know, your question has so many layers in it. I'm going to take my time to answer because
Please do.
This question allows me to really be very clear to myself of something that I once thought I owned and was part of my identity, and it was to fix everything. You know, I was the fixer. When people brought me problems, or when I thought that there was an issue, I would move hell and high water to fix it. Then, like I said, something happened. My mom got sick, and my brother's only two of us, my brother and I, and we had to drop everything to be there for my mom. And what I learned, I'm the hyper one. I'm the one that, as my brother says, you have no common sense, but you have intellect, right? So it's like, you didn't know that? I'm like, no, you know. So one of the things that I thought I owned was, when this came to our attention, like, how do I fix it? And it's not about me fixing it. It is about, how do we come together as a family to support her, and um, based on whatever decision she makes, how do we bring our best foot forward, and deal with what has happened, and bring our strengths to the table. So one thing I realized was that I didn't have to carry the load. My brother Jamiko and we have different strengths. Like I said, I'm the hyper focused. I have to have structure. He saw me in my element. We were in Boston for about 16 weeks. And again, God bringing the three of us together as a family. My father would come and visit. My children would come. His children would come. My partner would come. Different people would come. But it was, friends would come. It was this solid unification of this triad: my mom, my brother, and myself. And what I realized was that Jamiko is very good at keeping us calm. He was very good at allowing, when I was triggered, to give me the look, or just say, hey, it's going to be okay, or don't worry about that. Or he would bring it up as a joke, right? When things were heavy. He reminded me of what I bring to the table, as I reminded him, as we got through these traumatic times, and that is something that I was able to release. I was able to say, oh man, I don't have to do that. Or why did I think I had to? And I remember one joke, it was something funny. And I said something to my brother, and he laughed. He says, you didn't think I could do that? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm sorry. But it was where he allowed me to release the ownership of having to take care of everything, and to know that it was a team's effort. And it was kind of contradictory or hypocritical of me, because I believe in teaming. Like, there's no I in team, but whatever my story was leading up to that, it was, Peach, it is your responsibility too. And this time it wasn't my responsibility. It was our responsibility. So how did I release it? I actually was able to be, again, this is where the pause comes in, pause and put things into perspective, and work with him. And we worked together, bringing our strengths to the table, to know that everything we do was for the good of mom first. Right. And also helped us to be these individuals who we now have developed, into at 50, and he's what, 43 or something like that, I think. So yeah. And as I'm speaking, it's like I'm getting more and more relaxed,
I can see that.
So that's the truth. Yeah. Of this whole, what I thought I had to own, and actually I didn't. And releasing it was one of the best things to help to put me in this space of making decisions of what my future, or what I want my future to look like in the next months, year, who cares,
Right. And hearing that, and hearing some of the things we've talked about outside of this episode and this space, just together personally, whether it's, the phone calls, the voice notes. I love that you leave voice notes. Like, she'll still send messages, but she's really good about, instead of a text, she'll leave a voice note, which is just, it's great. It's so nice to just hear a voice. So you're one of the few that I do that with, but we'll do that back and forth. Hey, how's it going with your mom, with the family? But I love that ability to look at a challenge or a difficult time as still a space where you can learn and grow, if that's your focus and that's who you really are. And I also love the takeaway from that for me is just really difficult, really need to show up for your mom, show up for your family. But so much of life, I feel, when you're going through tests or trials or difficulties, and you stay rooted in who you are, is just fully be present and
Mm-hmm.
fully be yourself. So own the moment and own the space that you occupy in that moment. And through that, there's a lot of stuff that can just fall away in a healthy way, right? So when you
Mm-hmm.
really show up 100%, and I know like 6 to 8 weeks, it was very limited the amount that we could connect. And there were
Mm-hmm.
times we typically every few weeks try to connect, whether it's a Zoom call. Those things didn't happen very frequently. Like you were fully there for your family as you should have been. And then fully bringing your gifts and making space for other people's gifts. I just think in community, that's a really good spot to be,
Mm-hmm.
is to just make space for yourself and others to just be fully 100% the best version of you for other people's in a mindset of you're there for your mom. And when you do that well, I hope people don't let this first response slip away without grabbing the gold from it. When you can do things like this well, like what Garita just shared, I really feel like you truly own your identity. And the things
I
that
agree.
aren't
Mm-hmm.
really supposed to be a part of who you are or might be unhealthy things you're trying to latch onto and own, you can let those things go. Like, hey, I didn't have to worry about that stuff that's not me. It's not just on my shoulders. I got a team around me. I got a bro with me. I got a good
Mm-hmm.
balance. I got a yin for my yang. And like, I think those moments, as difficult as they are, I've noticed that too. They really highlight the strengths of others and your own strengths and how complementary, just like a body, the hand doesn't need to do the foot's job.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it ain't getting nowhere without the foot to take it there. So like all these things play together so beautifully. And that's what I hear in that story. And I know that's sort of your heart in it as well.
You know, one thing that it just hit me. Remember when I said I'm now doing, I'm aligning it, or I'm correlating what happened in my accident to, this, what has happened with our family based on our mother's situation. And it was like when the higher being said, this is supposed to happen to you, everything's going to be okay. And people didn't realize, and trust me, I had my highs and my lows, trust
Right.
me, I still do, but I'm human, right? But it was this acceptance of moving forward. And I know that happened with my brother and I, because people couldn't understand, how are you guys doing this?
Mm-hmm.
We're so thankful for our employers. We're so thankful for our support team. But when people said how you do it, it was like, it wasn't even a second thought. It was easy. Not easy, but it was like that. If this was supposed to happen, everything's going to be all right.
Right.
And things that happened was, again, if somebody said, do you think that there's a God? I'm like, heck yes, because of everything that was put in place, like what happened in my accident, like what happened, when we had to deal with my mom. But it was this whole level of feeling like you're on a high, even though people may be sorrowful around you. It's like, nah, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a special gift that God gives people when there's trauma, because that's when the belief comes.
Yep.
And again, you're owning it, right? I'm not blaming other people. Trust me, I challenge some of the practitioners or insurance companies, or, because some things didn't make sense.
Right.
And that was my role as far as part of the team, to make sure that she got the best care. But it was always, is exhausting, but it was light. Yeah, this is just what we do. Oh,
Right.
how are you guys making out? Yeah, we're good. I don't know what people expected us to say, but it wasn't sorrowful like that, where you're pitying
Right.
what has happened. It's, this is what's happened, so let's move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just make the best of the situation.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of strength and grace and grit that is gifted in those moments where you
Mm-hmm.
are required to show up for others and it is part of your purpose. If you plug into it, you wouldn't have had that strength outside of that space when you needed it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And from a developmental standpoint, and also from a spiritual standpoint, I think physically, mentally, emotionally, when you're presented with a test or something that's going to try you through a season, I actually
Mm-hmm.
believe, if you want to believe the way we do, that if there is a good God, a good creator that takes care of us and that brings certain things in our life to prune and tune us, even despite the fact that I'm not saying that he wishes sickness and death and
Mm-hmm.
unhealthy things, but that is a natural byproduct of being human. But
Mm-hmm.
for those people that show up in that space like you did for your mom, with your brother, I believe that when you get to that moment, even though there was stuff going on with your mother, I think it was the way I hear it, and honestly, the way I believe it, it was a little bit of a testing period for Garita, a 6 to 8 week test period. And a good teacher doesn't offer, or a good dad, as a father, I can say this too. I don't offer tests to my children if I haven't given them the tools they needed to pass the test. And we don't always know what those tools are, but all the things that we've experienced and learned up to that point, I actually believe that if it's a test that's a gift from God to grow us and to prune away the stuff we don't need and to tune up our strengths, when he walks through that space with us and we're willing to go through it with him and we own it and say, okay, I'm going to own this for an opportunity. In that space, you have everything you need to come out the other side, passing that test. And then on the backside of it, like what you're doing now, I encourage you to rest because it can be a lot. The test can be exhausting. So mentally, physically, spiritually, you need to chill. But in that season, you get, I would say, a very uncommon, maybe other than human strength and ability and capacity to pass the test and to come through and actually learn through that test. Like, how do we learn? A lot of times when you get tested, maybe you missed a couple questions. You learn those failures even better. So even when you zig, if you should have zagged and things like that, I think on the backside of the test, a really good teacher, a really good parent, a really good God highlights the things you did well, highlights the areas for improvement and says, man, don't you feel like a better form of you now coming out the backside of that? And it does. It's almost just like, I didn't want to enter into that space. Maybe you with your mom, of course, no one wishes those things. But without that, could you be who you are today? Probably not. Probably not. I would say definitely not. And so I just think it's beautiful how those things layer together when you really own it, when you're honest enough to show up and learn from it and participate in it. Because you could have said no to a lot of that. You could have made excuses. You could have trimmed the time you spent there. There's a million excuses that you could have used, but you didn't. So, I mean, I applaud you for that. And I just think it's beautiful to hear how it's pretty fresh. It's pretty hot off the press for you, this storyline that we're sharing. Yeah. But it's just cool to see how you're constantly evolving and growing, like you said. And I think it's just really beautiful to hear and see that in you. So good job. I'm proud of you.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So when we talk about this ownership, maybe things like when you tell someone, I need to own this, a lot of times maybe that has a bad connotation, things going wrong. But what about when things go right? How do you encourage yourself and others to own your strengths, successes, and the unique giftings that maybe only you as an individual can have without letting that slip into arrogance or pride? How does that look for you?
I think as coaches, we do it well. I think that our responsibility to ourselves and our clients is, being able to own when things go wrong and when things go right. And remember, our brain is we're programmed 4 times more to embrace the negativity. So, one of the things that I had to learn was that when I was given a compliment, pause and embrace it, because I would talk over it. I have clients, I would navigate. You tell me I look nice, or my hair looks nice, or I look this, and I did a great job, and I'll say, okay, and I'll start talking about something else, but being able to now pause and embrace it and say, yes, that's why I said you're going to embrace the micro and macro accomplishments. And I think that's one of the things that I've been told I do very well as a coach. Last week I was in Malta, training some of the KPMG performance managers. We did a PME.
You were in Malta and
I was in Malta.
What a tough life.
That's probably yeah.
Terrible.
That was amazing. But one of the things I encouraged them to do, and the participants, took it to another level about no matter what we're doing with managing individuals and leading them, we have to celebrate and we have to allow them and ourselves to own our part in that success. So that's one of the things that I really am going to be intentional with, allowing people to own when they've done things the right way and they see the ramifications of what they've done in themselves and other people. And I think that once you do that in a very holistic way, the ego and the pride is erased because you're coming up as your authentic self.
Right.
And when you stand in your authentic self, you have to embrace and be proud of whatever steps you took to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to allow the noise, because other people that may accuse us of being prideful or egotistical, or who do we think they are, maybe remember they also hold up a mirror so they see that in themselves.
Right.
So as long as we're humble, as long as we're kind, as long as we take responsibility for the good, the bad, the indifferent, and we stand up and do things for the good of ourselves and others, well, others first and then ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that people have to remember, that eliminates all the negativity. And I've had to learn that eliminates. And what happens is people choose not to engage with you on the negative, the glass half empty, pessimistic view.
Right.
And I actually love that. Like, some people know, do not bring me some things that don't make sense, because either I'll go quiet,
Mm-hmm.
or either I'll engage with them that's actually not a topic that I want to indulge or have with you, a conversation around that topic.
Right.
So yeah, and I think that allows you to have a brand for what you stand for.
Right.
And it's okay to have a brand that, I actually want to celebrate when I or people that I support do well.
Right. I've been pressing into that so much more. I believe since I started this journey with foundational coaching, whether it's everything I've been doing in this space, because I'm still active duty in the Marine Corps. It's still my full-time primary paying job. But doing this, just because it's my passion project and it's what my heart loves to do, that. This is my gift. And I just was really challenged because it does align well to what I'm studying and what I'll research for the PhD and all these things. But all these gifts and just things that, like I say with Fred a lot, like it's like God gives you a download of, you might just hear something that's like, I feel like I heard his voice on this, and this is the path I'm supposed to be walking. And I take some time. I don't rush into decisions, but just prayerfully and reflectively looking at, like, what have you brought me through and to in my life? And where is this path going now? And trying to be very quick to listen and obedient to follow those steps. So this whole journey has been pretty radical for me and very, very challenging, because whether it's on a podcast and you're like, am I just bringing great people on and we're talking into an empty space at times, right? Because there's always these other voices of expectations of what it should look like, what it could look like. And I'm going to tell people, like, you don't even know what's beneath the surface of what's being built here. You don't even know all the purposes, and I'm not going to reveal it because it's not time right now. But every interview that I do with people on a virtue is part of things that will matter big time for where I'm going with the research I'm doing. And I know that. And guess what? Part of that is ownership, owning it, owning your strengths, owning the gifts. And you don't have to reveal all of that to everybody. Yep. It's actually very, very foolish to do that. I think there should be a very tight circle that knows it, that can encourage you in it when it gets hard, because you need that. But keep that circle tight and make sure that they don't have loose lips that are going to be running all over the place with this info. Like, it's got to be this level of trust. So I think trusting your own heart, but also trusting really good people like I do with you, and getting that encouragement from people who it's a safe space where they know exactly the inner workings that other people can't see. And they really can speak into encouraging you, like, hey, man, you know your virtues, you know your vision. Even if other people don't understand it, you've got to keep going forward. You've got to keep pressing because you believe in this, and I believe in you. And when you hear those things, it takes time. But I think it takes the fullness of time. And in that space, there's such a need for, owning it, not being proud, not being arrogant, but in humility going, like, nothing is going to shake me from this course I'm on. Nothing is going to make me waver or throw in the towel, because I believe in it, and it might be clunky and awkward, but I'm going to keep getting better every time with it. And I'm doing it aligned to my purpose and aligned to serving other people and to really trying to plug into why I believe God threw me on this earth. So, hey, if I don't own that, what am I doing here?
Exactly.
So I love that. Yeah, you got to be humble, but who cares if not everybody agrees with or sees or values the vision? They have their own thing to own. That might not be your cup of tea. Right on. Who cares? Humbly own it. And if those people aren't made for you, you're not made for everybody. I'm sorry. It's okay. Exactly. You're going to be fine. It's all right. So especially with what you do in your day job, I mean, you're sort of a big deal. You're a rock star. So I know you've worked in spaces that require both accountability and empowerment, especially as a talent development lead for big time deal like KPM Island Group. So like for KPMG Island Groups and all that you've done there, all you've done through coaching, and even as a mom and a friend, I think every space you occupy, you're big on accountability and empowerment. So how do you help others move from a place of maybe borrowed beliefs or habits to truly owning their own values and vision and decisions? How do you navigate through that as a coach and as just a good friend and leader? How do you do that?
I think one of the things we have to do is allow people to share their story. I call it having the verbal vomit. I think that we have to allow individuals to, like you've done so well on this podcast, how you teed up, introducing me and then allowing me to open the gates of telling my own story. And as part of allowing people to tell their story as coaches, our job is to listen empathically. We listen to reflect, not to respond, right? And in doing that, we then have to ask some powerful, simple but powerful questions that allow individuals to have epiphanies for themselves because it's all within them, right? Like you said, God is our teacher and he gives us tools and he gives us experiences that allow us to be able to have these epiphanies. And unless, what Albert Einstein would say, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting this different results. It's allowing people to be in a very trusting environment, psychological safe environment, to allow them to, after giving you the verbal vomit, after listening empathically to them, and then allowing you to ask those critical questions that hit their heart. And I think when that happens, then you're able to empower them because they can respond in a way that may surprise them, right? Because that's what we do as coaches. We provide this space that partner with people to get them towards the goals that they want. And within the journey, give them tools and what we call it mobilization of resources to be a better version of themselves. And with that, I'm big on the accountability, like, what will you do next? How can I support? Right. And the empowerment of allowing them to know that they are in control of their life, ownership. So once people understand that they are in control of their life, it's not about, money can add to our happiness. Money cannot give us happiness. I've had to learn that, right? All of us want to have some money. Come on, Josh. Come on. We like nice things.
Yep.
Yes, but it's allowing people to know that based on them owning the situation, being accountable and being empowered to make decisions to change it for what they see or what they want it to look like. It's not what I want it to look like. I'm not mentoring you. I'm coaching you. It's what do you want it to look like and how can I help you to get there, to make you a better individual for yourself and how you show up for others.
Right.
So yeah. And I love that part of the job. Love it, love it, love it. And I was able to see that happen even last week in Malta. And the feedback that the participants gave me was just that, you are able to build trust very fast. You are able to allow us to be our authentic self and tell our story and hold us accountable. And lastly, I feel empowered that I want to be better. Like that is the best that you can do, or the feedback that you want to receive from others, right, whether it's in a professional setting or not,
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's so good. I think for me, this, and that question as it resonates with me is the best example I can give of how I've learned as a coach and just as a human, whether it's being a husband, a father, a friend, the best proving ground and learning playground for me is as a father. And here's why. Because it's my job, the way I believe it's my job and my responsibility to give my children a moral compass for this life and in this world, and to give them a proper worldview, the best that I can in the way that I believe. That's my job, first and foremost, as a parent, alongside my wife, as the family unit. Like, you have to give people the moral code and compass to navigate through life. But what I don't want to do is, even though I have my set of beliefs, I don't want them to have those beliefs or habits that are borrowed because
Mm.
they don't have a right to own it if it's not fully ingrained in their heads, their hands, and their heart. All of them. If they
Mm-hmm.
don't own it, they can't press through like 17-year-old Garita did when they get in a wreck and lose their lower side of the
Mm.
right leg. So I would say shout out to your parents because I think, well, I know
Mm.
based on who you are, I can see a person like you and say that was amazing parenting and so much
Mm.
love in that home. Not that people can't come out the other side of bad lives and bad family situations and still choose to own it for themselves and be good. But you can sense when you meet people that they come from a good
Mm.
home unit. And as much as I believe the way I believe and I feel strongly about it, I don't want that to be my children's belief if it's not theirs. So that's a very difficult scale to balance is like, I have to offer you this worldview and this perspective because it's part of me. And I'm not going to shy away from it because I believe in it.
Mm.
But I want you to own it. In that space of balancing that as a parent, and I know you've walked through that as a parent yourself, of giving people the feeling of ownership and independence and freedom and autonomy to be their best self that they were made to be while
Mm-hmm.
still trying to hold tight to a moral compass and a set of beliefs and virtues. It's difficult, but the space of doing it with children has made me a better man for other people outside of the parenting space because I try not to be a different person in other spaces. It might apply differently, but the way that I might ask a good question of my daughter to get her
Mm-hmm.
to really reflect, I've done it as a coach. And I'll give you an example. A question I ask my girls a lot when they come up to me and they just want to hit the easy button and they want to treat me more like a mentor than like a dad. And they want to get an answer because they're being lazy. And coaching ain't mentorship. It's like, we're going to make you do the
Mm-hmm.
work, right? So
Mm-hmm.
then I'll ask them all the time, like, okay, if you don't need to make a decision right now because it's not for your safety and it's not like a fight or flight mode and it's not a traumatic event that you have to right now make a decision. I said, if you're going to be safe and legal about it and do things aligned to your beliefs, if I wasn't here, what would you do? I
Mm.
said, don't tell me, just do it. I said, so don't say what would dad do, but with the moral compass he's been giving me, with the beliefs that I have in my heart, the things that I believe that I shouldn't violate, and also the set of things that maybe I know I shouldn't do as a person morally. If it's safe, ethical, legal, moral, if dad wasn't here, what would I do? Figure it out on yourself. And I think that's a powerful question to just ask of people sometimes because, like, it's okay if someone's coming to you for advice, but what you don't want to do is become a crutch for people that when you're not there, they
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to act.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that mindset of coaching that you bring into spaces so well is like, yeah, I could give you an answer. I could tell you what I would do, but it sounds like this problem ain't about me. I'm not a part of the solution here. So if I wasn't here, what would you do? Let's talk through that one for a second. And for my kids, that has been really cool to watch them say. They usually reflect back and just maybe regurgitate things I've told them before, but now I'm making them own their decision. And then
Mm.
I say, and I'll even tell them, like when they were a little bit younger, I would tell them to talk me through it. But now my older two, the 6-year-old and almost 9-year-old, I say, I don't even want to know what you did. I want you to just go do it. You're welcome to come share your success or failure with me at the back end of it, but I'm not going to watch you. I'm not going to hover and smother you. Go do the thing. I'm going to walk in the other room or I'm going to go outside. Be your own person. Come talk to me about how it went and what you learned from it. And as a
Mm-hmm.
parent, man, I'll tell you what that's done. You talked about the ability to build trust quickly with people, and I've heard that as well as a coach. My daughter the other day walked into me right before she went to bed, my 8-year-old, almost 9-year-old. And it
Mm-hmm.
was one of the most beautiful things she could have said, out of left field, clear out the blue. She goes, Dad, we were talking today about how we can trust people and if there are people we can trust. And I want you to know, I told the teacher immediately that I can trust my dad. And the reason that I can trust my dad is because when he makes mistakes, he's honest with me and he lets me do things the way I want to do them. And I just know you love us and you'll protect us. But I just can always trust that you're there. And I thought you should know that. And I was like, what? It's like, yo, this is amazing. So I think it's just the power of trust, like you said, but the power of letting people own their strengths and really
Mm-hmm.
own it and step into it is it's everything to me. And as a parent, I've learned so much from that and how to do that well with other people. So I love where you went with that. Thanks so much. This one is going to hit. We talked about this a little bit before we started recording, because you call it out. Like, you saw these questions beforehand and you're like, ooh, this one I'm glad you asked. So I can't wait to hear your response on this. So, the way I believe, I think ownership starts in the mind. It starts with our thoughts, because our thoughts drive our actions, which are going to shape our feelings and emotions. So, like, having identity drive what we do is really important. Purpose driving our actions is really important. But it has to move from just like a head knowledge and a head space into actually taking action, like employing our hands, pressing in with our heart into situations to really shape who we are and how we live. So where do you see yourself in that cycle the most challenged, whether it's in your head, your hands, or your heart, maybe mind, body, spirit, if you want to look at it that way? How are you struggling to just get raw and real with it and own it for a second in that cycle for ownership?
I'm in the middle. Like I said, when I shared with you, I loved how you framed everything about ownership, right? The head, hands, and heart. Where I see that I struggle, and I'm now so interested to see how I overcome this, is in the hands. It's the discipline of being consistent with what I say I'm going to do. And you know how I feel. Every coach has a coach. Right. So that's something that my coach is working on with me, and it comes about putting myself first and what is going to make me happy, but doing the work to, whether for me, I'm big on delegation. So building a team to help me to be disciplined around consistency of, in my case, like, marketing myself to do that. As a parent, even being disciplined with being consistent with how I show up for Cree and Remy. And I take to heart what you said about your girls. I'm working to allow my children to actually show up and make choices that they deem is the best choices for them, because they are first to say, I'm not you. They have no problem saying that to me. But the hand piece, the action, with consistency, because I take action, but the consistency part of it. Now, once I'm in and I build some momentum, it's no stopping me. Right? But again, I'm very big on building a team or a structure around me that helps me to be disciplined and consistent with things that I know are going to take me to the destination that I want to go. So that's my Achilles heel. Yeah. And that's something that I continue to want to do better in. But I'm getting better. But it's still not how I would like for it to be. I can get distracted.
I believe you. I'm going to take you at your word on that one, but I will also say, to encourage you, is like, you are diving in. Like, there's no need with the accolades you have and the position you have from an outside perspective. There would be no need for you to go, let's say, through the coaching education you went through, or to pursue ICF standards, International Coaching Federation standards, all the things that we've talked through. But it does come back to, I think, the community that you build around yourself and the connections that you tether yourself to, like with us. And I think we've walked through that space when I was going through, okay, I'm going to do these things. And I was very driven on getting to these sets and standards and credentialings last year. And then just the pacing and spacing of that was great, because then you would reach out and say, hey, okay, so you already stepped into this. So then what's next? So part of it does come, like, it's not all about open-ended questions in coaching. There are some times where you can just ask someone who's walked that landmine before, like, hey, what should I look out for? Show me the potholes and the steps I need to take to be sure-footed. So we've navigated through some of those things together, and it's a cool journey when you can do that. So I would say, yes, maybe you feel like the discipline for certain actions. I agree with you, but also you are a very action-oriented person. So to encourage you in that, when you do set your mind to doing it, and you have people that'll give you a little, verbal swift kick in the butt, like, just go do it, just knock it out. It ain't a big deal. And then you get done with it, you're like, oh yeah, that one, nothing, I'm good. I believe you, I hear you, but also just to challenge you a little bit, you're pretty darn good at it yourself, I would say. But thank you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend.
I love it. Yeah, but ownership is all about the actions, though. Because if you think about things all day long and you get sort of your paralysis by analysis, or you never fully step into doing things, what good is it? to own a belief that you don't apply. So
Exactly.
what? So what?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, and there's a saying for that. It's like someone that looks in a mirror, holds it up, and walks away and forgets what they look like. What good is that if you aren't applying the things that you've thought through and believed and poured your heart into? Like, work it out. Like, work it out. Do the thing. You're gonna make mistakes. It's gonna be ugly sometimes. I'm proof of that all the time. But there's so much power in rolling up your sleeves, getting your hands dirty, and just do the damn thing. Come on.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So as we wrap this up, final question. If you were to walk away from this podcast and say, man, I wish that Josh or one of the listeners would have asked me this related to ownership, or maybe not a question, maybe it's just something that you want to leave and impress. What would that question be, and how would you respond? Or what is that sort of last thing that maybe we haven't touched on that you really would just want to get off your chest if you didn't have a chance? What is that?
I thought I had a question for you, but I don't have a question. I have a last thought for the listeners.
Hit me with it.
For those individuals that may not see themselves as living the virtue of ownership, based on the definition, the description, the examples that we've provided, I encourage them to really have some quiet time and reflect and think about a situation that you have gone through or are currently going through that allows you to actually look at how to take ownership. Use the model that you've put in place, the head, the hand, and the heart, and really be able to pause and be present in that moment so that you can now see what taking ownership can do for you. And I think that sometimes we assume that people understand the whole piece of ownership and what it means and how they can do it, but it is actually living it through their everyday execution of things and being very mindful of it, right? And I think that's what I would love, because not everybody can say they take ownership, right? We have different types of people with different characteristics in this world, and ownership isn't on the top of their list. But I encourage people to really pause and want to actually experience what true ownership, taking true ownership of your life is, and what it could be, and how it can help you, take leaps, and have faith that everything will work out as it should.
So good. Before I hand it over to you to close this out, I want to share this because it's something I reflected on. I shared some notes with you earlier, and this is just a space like, this is my show, so I can do this. Well, what? If you've been listening this long, you tuned in anyway. So
Exactly.
I'm gonna share this for Garita because I want to encourage her. So as you were talking at the beginning, and I'd shared some of the stuff that I'm using for the notes for the episode with Fred on Back to Good, which is more faith-based discipleship dialogue. But there is the Apostle Paul writes this in Philippians in the Bible, and in Philippians chapter 3, the first 11 verses, he talks about his faith in the righteousness of God. And how we get that righteousness. If we believe in God, we get that righteousness inside of us. But then when it hits verse 12 to 16, as I was reading through this and sort of getting my mind spiritually wrapped around how I view ownership. And then I started thinking on you. This, like the way he frames this, reminds me so much of your spirit that I just wanted to share it with you and let you see yourself maybe through this light, because it's really powerful to me. So he just gets done talking about faith in Christ, the righteousness of God, and like how he tries to lose everything he knew if it wasn't for the gift that God had given him to press into and owning who God made him to be in Christ. And then he goes, not that I've already obtained this or am already perfect, but I press on to make it my own because Jesus has made me his own. I don't consider that I've made it my own, but one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and straining forward to what lies ahead. I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God. Let those of us who are mature think this way. And if in anything you think otherwise, God will reveal that to you. Only let us hold true to what we have attained. So he goes, I'm not living in the past. I'm pressing forward, but I am going to hold true to the things that I've attained. I'm going to own it. And I'm going to keep pressing into who God has made me to be. And I know you got big decisions. big things on your horizon. We've talked about it. That's between you and your decision timeline. If and when you unveil those, I'm honored to be maybe behind the curtain on some of that stuff you got working in your life. But as a friend and just as your bestie in Norway and my bestie in Bermuda, I love you so dearly. And my family is so excited. I mean, we got to come to Bermuda, take the girls to the island, check it out, party with Garita. But I can't even express to you and to the listeners how much you mean to my heart, to my family's heart. You've been such an encouragement on this journey that I'm on with my family because they go through it all with me in this space. From episode 1 all the way up until this episode a year later, from humility to ownership and everything in between, you have been there beneath the surface as a foundation for me, as an anchor for me. And like I just talked about the girls, I say this every episode, it's for them, for Laura, Aria, Alessia, Karina. This is a legacy I want to leave to them. A little bit of that thumbprint of who Dad is, the people Dad brought into his life, the people that meant something to him. And you are up there, my friend. Like if someone says you're bestie, like I said at the beginning of the episode, much like Jesus and Lazarus, the one you love, you ain't even got to say her name. Say bestie. I'm going, oh, you're talking about Garita. And if someone else claims bestie, it ain't theirs to claim. Because she coined that term for me. So she gets it. But I just think owning the relationships you have and not taking that as a weight, taking it as such a privilege to walk this life with some beautiful people that God has woven into the seams of the fabric of your life and your DNA. That's who you are to me. And I would just challenge people, listen to what she said about how she showed up fully herself with all of her gifts for her mother. And so much of life is just calling us to own who we are, own whose we are, and just be present, be patient, and be there for other people. You do that so beautifully, so well. And this has just been such a joy and an honor. Over to you for the last word before we hang it up for the day.
Thank you. Gosh, you speak so eloquently. Well, I would like to thank you, Josh, for providing a platform to share your ideas and invite other people to have the conversation. And so others can have some insight on who these individuals who you choose to engage with are. So I encourage again our listening audience, reflect, pause, think about taking ownership, and know that you are responsible for what your life is and what it can be. And once we take ownership of that, we're unstoppable. No matter what the noise is saying, quiet the noise. So thanks again for inviting me on. Maybe it's another year, August of 2026, who knows? But, whenever you call.
I don't know what we're doing.
I don't know. But whenever you call, I will make sure that I make myself available for you and to you. Definitely.
Always. It's been such a joy. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay tuned because on Monday, same virtue, stepping into application. Fred and I are going to be taking it back to good. Garita, been such a joy. Love you, my friend. Have a good weekend. Cheers to y'all. We'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Off the Hinges. Don't forget to follow Foundational Coaching on your favorite social media platforms. Kick off your Saturday with me tomorrow morning at Coffee and Reflections on Substack, where I'll share my reflections and stories on the weekly virtue. I'm honored to be a part of your story today, and I'm proud of your growth, my friend. I can't wait for our next time together, exploring the vault.